You are not all alone in this world. Don't think that you don't have help. Don't think that no one is caring about you. The truth is, there are people who can help you and who are willing to help you. All you got to do is just step a little outside and seek for the help from correct people and from the correct places. So when the life throws challenges towards us, when there is tough times in life, we tend to think that we are the only person who is going through depression, anxiety, or stress or problems. But the truth is, if you see the world, there are millions and millions of people who are struggling and who are suffering in this life, right? We all struggle in our lives to live in this world, right? So it is not your suffering. It is not only my suffering. It is our suffering. We all are suffering in this world. The Buddha said, where there is birth, there is suffering. That is the reality. But we don't want to think about this suffering as something negative, right? It is not the suffering that makes us negative. It is the perspective that we are holding on to suffering makes us negative, right? So, today, I'm not here to talk about depression and how to quit the depression. Today, I'm going to share with you a simple Buddhist practice that can help you in healing these depressive thoughts or anxious thoughts or any kind of mental suffering that you're having. And this practice is called becoming mindful about your thoughts, right? Becoming mindful about your thoughts. In Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha explains this as Cittanupassana. So how can we practice becoming mindful about our thoughts? It is very simple, right? You can do this practice whenever you want or wherever you want. It is free. You totally have the freedom to do it, right? Here's how we can do this. And when we become mindful about our thoughts, what we are doing is we are not judging our thoughts, and also we are not trying to stop our thoughts, but we constantly become aware of what we are thinking, what comes to our mind. So all you got to do is you can sit down, or you can do this while walking, while traveling in the bus, or wherever you want. Just ask from yourself that what am I thinking? Then you will come across with these thoughts, right? So what we have to do is whenever you become depressed, whenever you feel anxious about yourself, whenever you feel sad about something, what you have to do is just notice it. Notice it as a thought. Because most of the time, we judge ourselves by thoughts. We are thinking about ourselves as our thoughts. But remember, you are not your thoughts. When you become more mindful, it gives you this ability to separate yourself from your thoughts, right? So we don't want to judge ourselves by our thoughts. What we are doing is we become mindful. We become more aware of our thoughts without judging. It is very simple. It's like this. It's like you're watching a traffic pass by sitting beside the road. You can see cars are going, you can see bikes are going, vans, buses, cargo carriers. There are so many vehicles that are going. All you're doing is you're just watching them. You're just noticing them, right? But most of the time what happens is we become more afraid about these vehicles and we try to jump into the middle of the road and we are trying to stop these things. Right? That is what you are doing. That is what we are doing when we become depressed or sad. When these sad and depressed thoughts haunt our mind, what we are doing is we are trying to fight it. We are trying to suppress them. We are trying to stop them. The more you try to stop these thoughts, it will come again and again. Remember that. So all you got to do is, we are not going to fight them, we are not going to stop them, we are noticing them, right? You can do this. Just ask this simple question from you: what am I thinking? Then you will find that, oh, my thoughts are depressed. It is not me that is depressed, my thoughts are depressed, right? So what is the nature of a thought? It will come and it will stay for a while in your mind and it will fade away. That is the nature of the thought. So it is just a thought. That means you are not the depression, you are not the anxiety, and you are not the stress. Remember, if you feel hopeless, if you feel that you are not good enough, don't believe what your mind always says. You are more capable than you think. You are more good than you think, right? So what is holding back us is this little frame that we are having inside our mind, that I am not good enough, I cannot do these things, I am not capable of doing these things, I am hopeless, no one is going to help me. If you change that mindset one day, remember, you can do better and you can do more than you think. So please, don't think that you are not good enough. I repeat again, that you are more capable of doing things more than you think, right? So believe in it and work for it. So if you are going through painful situations and if you are having painful memories about yourself, don't run away from them. Don't be afraid of them. Remember, pain is a part of growing, right? If you want to grow, sometimes you have to go through pain. Most of the time you have to go through pain. So if you practice these mindful exercises, and if you seek for the help, and if you do this proper medication for your mental suffering, then one day for sure you are going to be okay. You are going to be happy in your life. And this is the best part of recovering from these traumatic and painful situations. What is that? You can help someone who is in the same place as you were. You can say that, do these things, practice these things, think like this, because I know the pain that you are going through, because I was a person like you. But I am recovered now. You also can recover yourself. So you can inspire others and you can help others. And then you will find the real value of your life. So please do not think that you are not good enough. You're more than enough than you think. So remember these things and practice these things in your life. And I wish you all, may all of you find the real happiness in your life.
From today's video, let's discuss about how can we deal with anxiety and what to do when our mind becomes anxious, right? We all know that how it is painful when our mind becomes anxious and when we become afraid of the things that will happen in the future, or when the mind creates all these scenarios in our head about the things that will happen in the future, right? So how can we deal with this state of mind? There are a few things that we can do, right? But most of the time, when we become anxious, what happens is we become panicked and we take decisions that may not be the correct decision to take. Okay, so today I'm going to be sharing with you few things and few advices that I have given and that helped me a lot personally to deal with this anxiety. So the first thing that you have to do is, first, you have to be aware of your mental state, right? If you're anxious, if you're afraid of something, the first thing is to be aware of it and to accept it, right? Most of the time, we pretend not to be anxious. We pretend not to be fearful about the future, and we try to reject that state of our mind. The more we reject, the more it persists in our mind. So that is why the first step is to acknowledge and accept your current state of your mind. If you're anxious, just say to yourself, okay, now my thoughts are in anxiety mode, right? My thoughts are anxious. I am fearing about certain things. Acceptance will help you to catch the thought and to be more aware of it. And also, when you accept it, it creates less pain, right? Acceptance is the first step of healing. So the first step is to accept your current mental state. And the second step is, this is amazing, once you understand the current state of your mind, what you have to do, the biggest advice that I have given about anxiety is do one thing at a time, right? Take one action at a time, right? We all know that when we have lot to do, right? When we have many jobs to do, what happens? We start thinking about everything, right? We started loading these thoughts into our mind every time, and we try to do all at once. But in reality, we can't do all at once, right? One thing that we can do is we can take one job, one action at a time and do that, right? So how to do this? First of all, to clarify your thoughts and to be clear about what you have to do and what you can do and cannot do, first, sit down in a quiet place, take a piece of paper and write down all the things that you are fearing about, and write down all the things about the current situation that you are in. And also, most importantly, you have to write down the things that are in your control and things that are out of your control. When you clarify these things, you can take actions upon the things that are under your control. So one thing that you can do is sit down, write down all the thoughts, write down current situation of your life, and write down all the things that are under your control and not under your control, so that you're very clear about what to do and what not to do, right? So when you clarify that and take one action, just one action, and what you have to do, just execute that action, right? Don't try to do all the things, just pick one action and do it at one. It's something like this, right? Something like you're grabbing a bunch of oranges, right? What will happen if you try to grab a bunch of oranges at once? You can't grab all of them, right? It will fall, they will fall. So one thing that you can do is pick a basket, take one orange at a time and put it into the basket. In that way, you can grab many oranges. In the same way, when you clarify your thoughts and take one action at a time and execute it, then it will be clear in your mind and it will ease up your mental state. So do one thing at a time. And the third step is to do it slowly and deliberately, right? Even when you become clarified about what to do, don't be anxious, don't be panicked. What do you have to do? Do it slowly, right? One thing that a lot of meditation masters teach is that when you're anxious, do something slowly, right? Slow down. When your body becomes slow down, your mind becomes slow down. That's the connection between the body and our mind. When our mind is slow, our body is slow. When our body is slow, our mind is slow. So do things, take that action and do it slowly and deliberately. Do it with proper consciousness, proper awareness and proper mindfulness. That's so that you feel what you're doing. Then you understand what you're doing, right? So in that way, you can ease up this anxiety. And the last thing that you have to do is do it completely, right? Complete the action. When we are anxious about certain things, what we do, we don't complete that action, right? We just hang over that problem or that task and we don't complete it, right? One thing that you have to do is do it completely, right? Complete your action, do it slowly, deliberately, and finally complete that action so that that step is finished, right? And then once you complete that action, what do you have to do? Take the next step and do it slowly, deliberately and completely. In that way, you can clarify what you have to do, and also you will get a good time to take good decisions. So this is a little way and a tiny practice that you can add to your life to ease up your pain of anxiety. And whenever you are anxious about certain things, try this and it will ease up your pain of anxiety. So keep this little advice in your mind and be happy. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome everyone to another video. From today's video, I would like to share some thoughts about going for refuge to these three jewels or three refuges in Buddhism. Now, traditionally, all Buddhists go for refuge to these three gems or three jewels. And in other words, we call them three refuges, right? And it is a traditional way. And most of the time, the traditional Buddhists, they do it as a chanting, right? Whenever they do their prayers, they say, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic and the spiritual community. So one can think, okay, it is same like the other religions, you know. You go for refuge, you believe in this Buddha and his teachings and the monastic community. It is same. But if you take a closer look at going for refuge, the process of going for refuge, there's a clear reason. There's a clear reason why we do this, right? And also we have to remember that just because we chanted Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, or just because we chanted that I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, doesn't mean that you truly go for refuge to the Buddha. Okay? So there's a way to do that. So let's discuss how we should do this. First of all, what are these three jewels? The first jewel or the first refuge in Buddhism is called Buddha. Buddha is the historical Buddha, the greatest teacher who taught the Buddhist teachings to all of us. The greatest teacher who taught the reality of life. So we consider him as the teacher, right? The guiding light of our life. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? Sometimes some people can say, okay, now you're believing the Buddha as a god. No, it is not the same way, because Buddha wasn't a god, and nor did the Buddha claim himself to be a god, right? So the Buddha was a simple human like all of us who achieved something beyond that an average human could achieve, the liberation. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? It is because he's the biggest role model of our life, right? So to have an inspiration from a character, we go for refuge to the Buddha. When we go through the difficult times and hard times in our life, we can always relate to the Buddha's life and say, okay, if Buddha faced such kind of adversities and difficulties, how would Buddha do this, right? So then you can follow the Buddha's life and Buddha's role model. You take the Buddha as the role model and it becomes the biggest inspiration for our life. So that is why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? So the correct way to go for refuge to the Buddha is to consider the Buddha as the biggest role model of our life, and to learn from his character and to follow his character as well. Okay? Or even though we cannot follow his fullest character, at least we can try some of his amazing qualities in his life. Okay? So that is the first thing and the first reason why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? And then the Dhamma, that is the second jewel or the second refuge in Buddhism. Dhamma is the Buddha's teachings. Now, why we go for refuge to the Dhamma? It is to consider it as the framework of our spiritual practice. Buddha taught his amazing teachings for 45 years. And these teachings we consider as the Dhamma, right? So these teachings gives us amazing help to live our life and to understand the true meaning behind our life, right? So to provide this framework, provide this path, we go for refuge to the Dhamma. Now, how to truly go for refuge to the Dhamma is to practice it, right? Follow the Buddha's teachings and practice it. and that is the correct way to go for refuge to the Dhamma. Okay, so first we take the role model and we follow his character, and also we follow his teachings, the Buddha's teachings. And third jewel, or the third refuge, is Sangha, the monastic community, the spiritual community, who have achieved the levels of spirituality. Okay, why we go for refuge to the Sangha, or this monastic community, or the spiritual community, is to give us the support for our spiritual practice. Because we all know we can't do this alone, all alone. We need a community. Everyone needs a community of people to grow. So when we get together and when we get in touch with this spiritual community, we can take advice from them. We can take this experiential advice from them and grow ourselves, right? So as a help, as a support for our spiritual practice, we go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic community. So this is why we go for refuge. And this is the real reason behind going for refuge to the Triple Gems. So I hope you got some idea about the 3 refuges in Buddhism. So I wish you all, may all of you be healthy, happy, and peaceful. Namo Buddhaya. The Buddha said, all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. When one sees this with insight and wisdom, one turns away from suffering and dissatisfaction in life. So from today's video, let's talk about the 3 signatas of life. 3 signatas, or in Pali we call it Tilakkana, is one of the fundamental teachings of Buddhism. The Buddha taught us that these 3 signatas are the fundamental nature of everything around you and everything within you, right? Everything within you and everything around you carries these 3 natures of life. So what are these 3 natures? The first one is anicca. The Buddha said, the life is impermanent. Everything around you, everything within you is subject to impermanence, right? So anicca means impermanence. Then the second sign, the second signata of life is dukkha. Dukkha can be translated into English as suffering. It is the most common translation. And also it gives the meaning of dissatisfaction of life. Okay? So the second sign, the second nature of life is that it is suffering and dissatisfaction. And the third is called anatta. Anatta can be translated into English as not self, right? So these are the 3 signs of everything around you and everything within you. So how can we understand this teaching of the Buddha? So first we'll take a look at anicca. What do you mean by anicca? The translation is impermanence. How can we understand impermanence? So there are these levels of anicca or levels of impermanence that we can understand. Okay? The first is the most peripheral and the most superficial impermanence of life, right? That everyone can understand. For an example, like seasons change, right? It is an impermanence. And sometimes these rivers, they dry up, right? It is an impermanence. These buildings collapse, right? It is an impermanence. Your car breaks down, your laptop doesn't stop working. This is more peripheral and more superficial, and everyone can understand this kind of impermanence in life. And there is this second level of impermanence that is more subjective to you, right? Your body starts aging, okay? Your body is under constant change, right? It is aging. That is an impermanence. And then your body is subject to illness or sickness, right? All of a sudden you fall ill. One time you was healthy and you become ill. That is also an impermanence. And then sometimes people change, their mindsets change, their personalities change. This is something that is more subjective to you. It is very closer to your life, right? And there is this more subtler and very subtle way of impermanence that lies beneath within all of our lives. For an example, who you are, Okay, what you call yourself is a bunch of experiences, right? You perceive this world and you connect to this world, you get connected to this world through these perceptions, right? These experiences. You see the things from your eyes, you listen to things from your ears, you smell things, you taste things, you feel things to your body, you think from your mind. So all these experiences are under constant change. Just take a look at your life, right? Now, if I ask from you, what happened to all the words that you heard from this video, in the beginning of this video? What happened to them now? They have been changed now. They have become impermanent. So in life, all these experiences, right? And all these perceptions how we perceive this world, all these experiences that we get connected with this world are under constant change. They have this transient nature. Okay? So that is the very subtler and the most deepest impermanence in life. Right? So what happens, how this becomes impermanent? The Buddha said why this becomes impermanence is because everything is conditioned. Everything arises due to conditions. For an example, when we see things, right, there should be certain conditions to see for our vision, right? When we hear things, there are certain conditions that occur within us, right? For an example, if someone blamed us, okay, in a faraway place, from a faraway place, let's say in another country, someone is blaming us, right? Do we get angry? We don't get angry, right? Because we didn't hear it. Now, when we hear this, okay, as soon as we hear this, now we become angry. So there are certain conditions that they need to come together for our perceptions and for our experiences in this world. So the nature of these conditions is that they are also under constant change. Okay? When the conditions change, our experiences change. That means who you are is under constant change, which we call anicca. Okay? So that is the way that we can understand the impermanence. Now, to understand this subtler impermanence, okay, this deepest impermanence, everyone cannot understand this. This need the meditational development, a developed mind, well-disciplined mind to do that. That is why we practice this insight meditation. Okay, so this is the anicca that Buddha talked about. Okay, this is the impermanent. That is the first sign of life, that everything around you, everything within you is under constant change. That is the first thing. Now, if I ask from you, if someone expects the permanence from these impermanent things, right? If someone expects things to be permanent, experiences to be permanent, when the very nature of everything is impermanent, what happens to that person? Would that person get what they expect, what he expects? No, right? And what happens to you when you don't get what you expect? You are dissatisfied, right? And you suffer. And that is what you call the second signata of life, the second nature of life. That is, life is subject to suffering. Life consists of dissatisfaction, okay? Because we expect things to be permanent, our experiences to be permanent, when the very nature of everything, every experience within us is impermanence, okay? I heard this wonderful quote from a famous monk. He said, "Impermanence doesn't make us suffer. What makes us suffer is wanting things to be permanent when the very nature of things are impermanent." Okay? So, the second signata of life is the dukkha, the dissatisfaction. Why dukkha? Because things are impermanent and we expect things to be permanent, right? Letting go of these expectations to be permanent is what you call the realization, the liberation, right? Expecting things to be permanent when the things are impermanent, is called the ignorance in life. Okay, so the second signata is that life is unsatisfactory, right? Everything around you cannot satisfy you to the fullest extent, right? For an example, we love every experience to be permanent, and we think that every experience is permanent. For an example, let's say when you have a happy feeling, okay, let's say you have a happy and a pleasurable feeling. What you expect what you expect from that experience? We expect, okay, I wish this experience will last forever with me. It will stay with me forever. But it isn't, right? How many happy experiences have you gone through? And now they're gone. They cease to exist. That is the nature of life. Okay? Let's say we are going through a difficult experience, painful experience. What we think? We think, okay, this pain will last forever. I will have to suffer forever. But the very nature of life is that it is also under constant change. Okay? So this is what we need to understand. Okay? So the second signata of life is called dukkha. And what is the third signata? The third sign of life? It is called anatta. Anatta is, in English we call it not self. Right? The Buddha said, if something is impermanent, okay, if the life itself, if the life around you, if the life within you is under constant change, can you expect any unchangeable and permanent self even within you? No. Okay? So, anatta means no permanent self, right? Even our consciousness changes according to our perceptions. That is the nature of life. So, if even the consciousness change, right? If even the consciousness conditioned, right? Then we can't expect any self to be permanent. Okay? This is called anatta. Okay? The not self nature of life. The perfect example for life is the flame. For an example, let's say we light up a candle and you can see a flame, right? Now, you can point out and show the flame, and we see the flame as an object. It appears to be like an object. But if you take a closer look at this flame, the nature of flame is that it is not one permanent thing, one unchanging thing. It is under constant change. It is a process, right? It is the process of combustion, right? If it wasn't, the flame always depend on the conditions. When the conditions are there, the flame exists. When the conditions are not there, the flame ceases to exist. For an example, let's say, can you remove the flame from the candle? You can't. Why? Because the flame entirely depends on that condition, the wick, the wax, the heat and everything. Okay? So our life is always a collection of conditions. Okay? When the conditions are there, the experiences arise. When the conditions become impermanent, the experiences change. This is the very nature of life. So these are the three signatas of everything around you. Look around you, right? Everything that objects, things, people, right? Your experiences, your body, everything has this very nature. So the Buddha said, if someone understood with developed wisdom, right? If someone understood this very nature of life, he turns away from suffering because he doesn't expect things to be permanent, because he knows that everything around him and everything within him is impermanent. So I hope you got some light about these three signatas of life. So I wish you, may you be healthy and may you be happy and may you be able to realize these three signatas of life in this life. Namo Buddhaya.